Some critics say the story encourages controlling relationships and glamorises domestic violence against women. On the red carpet, Sky News spoke to the stars of the film, Dakota Johnson and Jamie Dornan.
It's all consensual. Often the submissive is a male, like that's a really common thing. But I'm not, I'm certainly not, I don't condone violence against women, but I don't think this film does either. Even it's all about, the whole S&M world is about safe words, and if it's ever getting too much, you have a word and it stops. Also, you're only entering that world if you are into that. People they take pleasure from it. It's not about pain. You're not being hit and it's pain. It's that they take pleasure. That's why it's happening. And no one's forcing them into that world, so I don't really get that argument.
I think that it's actually the opposite. I think that Anastasia makes all of these decisions. Everything that happens in the book and in the movie is consensual, and I think it's a great display of self-worth and honor, and really, I think it actually does the opposite of what some people are saying. But we'll see what they think.
So that's what the stars think. What about our guest? Well, joining us from Los Angeles is Dr. Anna Arrowsmith, Britain's first female porn director and former Liberal Democrat parliamentary candidate. Here in the studio with us is Sonia Poulton, a journalist and social commentator. Welcome to you both. Sonia, let's start with you, because critics, as we were saying, are saying this isn't any way to portray a woman, portrayed by a woman in the 21st century. She's someone who's controlled by a man, and frankly, it looks a bit like she's after his money.
Yes, I know, I can understand that as well. I mean, I wasn't terribly into the books, I have to say. I've read about, 3/4 and put it down. I thought the writing was fairly abysmal. I wasn't terribly interested in it. I really want female characters to really own this stuff, to really feel what they're doing, because the truth is that, there is obviously a lot of submission. I didn't necessarily agree with what the stars said on the red carpet, but then they are going to be doing the PR stunt, aren't they? So, as I say, I want women to be much more forthright. I haven't seen the film, so obviously we're not going to be commenting on that, because that's fairly
Would it be all right for you if she was spanking him?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the thing about, I wouldn't claim to be a feminist, I'm humanist, but, the attitude of feminism is that a woman should do exactly what she wants to do, and if she wants to be submissive, then so be it as well, equally, and the roles can be reversed. Yeah, absolutely.
Anna, what do you think about that, this idea that perhaps if we hadn't seen the woman being the submissive character in this, it might be a different story?
Well, people would like it a lot more, that's for sure, in the sense that it would be much more politically correct. But the thing is, there's an important theorist back in the 60s that talks about this, Jacques Lacan, and he says, whatever gives you pleasure gives you power. And it's an important premise of this. It's difficult to understand this film really without it. You have some people who are submissive and some people who are dominating and some people that are neither, clearly. But, it's difficult when, is a woman to sort of think, oh, well, that's really what I like, and I'm not going to do that because then I'm going to be a weak person. Well, Lacan would be saying, you're disempowering yourself, and actually, if you went through this sort of experience, you learn about yourself, you learn about your fantasies, you would meet other people that are like-minded and stuff like this. So power is very interesting, especially with gender. And with my films as Anna Span, with the stuff that I've directed, it's very much about playing with ideas. Like you can have a woman playing an extremely submissive role and actually have her in control, but it's all about how you direct it. So it's really going to be interesting to see how this film has been directed. It's directed by a woman, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's really going to sort of grab what this female character means, but it probably makes it fairly more likely. But as I say, it's difficult. If it were the other way around, everyone would be going, that's fine. But that's the time that we live in.
Anna, this film is being released, as you know, this weekend, Valentine's Day weekend. Does it strike you as a good idea for a date movie?
Probably, but the thing is, well, okay, let's put it this way, there's always been a problem with putting sex in cinemas. We know, going right back to the golden age in the 70s, there was this small blip where you could go and see, a few sort of key films. But since then, there is a fundamental problem, and it's one that I've grappled with my filmmaking career. It's very well making something that people can consume at home, or as couples at home, but getting people sitting next to strangers, sitting in an auditorium and watching something. Well, if it gets really erotic, that's actually quite difficult, because you suddenly become aware of your surroundings. So there's an intrinsic tension there that I don't think films, perhaps Last Tango in Paris and things like that, but always the key is on the story and the sex is secondary. If you put a focus on the sex, when it comes you get a pretty dire film.
Sorry, Alice, to interrupt you there. Sonia, when it comes to portraying sex in films, that's a really interesting point, because some are saying, well, actually, this is quite a sanitised film in many ways. And if you compare it with things like, say, Girls, a series on Sky Atlantic,
which
is much more warts and all, quite frankly.
It is, and actually I like the warts and all. But that doesn't necessarily say anything about myself, but I just like it to be more real. I like the reality of it, and I think a lot of the time what we get is this sort of Hollywoodized version through a series of filters, a sort of puritanical filter of how people have to be portrayed in a very stereotypical way. And as I say, going back to what I said originally, is that I love those kind of characters that come on and they own what they're doing and everything. And I'm not convinced that we can go through the whole filtering system of Hollywood and still get that. Certainly, by all accounts, what we have is a watered-down version of the book.
And do we have an issue about the way that women are portrayed generally, speaking, if you will? I mean, it's either saint or sinner, isn't it?
Yes, it is either saint or sinner. Oftentimes it is really. No, I don't, as long as it's all consensual, because I think then, we've evolved in that respect. These aren't people. These are highly paid actresses, for example, and they do wield power. You're absolutely right. They do wield power, and we shouldn't forget that.